KPBS On Demand is supported by Splatero, helping homeowners pay for home improvements by offering streamlined access to your home's equity with no additional monthly payments or new debt. Splatero provides a lump sum payment in exchange for a share of your home's future value. Pre-qualification available at splatero.com.
Good morning, I'm Debbie Cruz. It's Wednesday, May 29th. Some North County residents are fighting against a proposed battery storage project. More on that next. But first, let's do the headlines. County health officials say people have been exposed to TB on the trolley's Blue Line. Transit riders could have been exposed January 27th to February 29th between the 24th Street and Barrio Logan transit centers and between the San Isidro and Old Town transit centers. Health officials say the likelihood that any particular rider was exposed for a long amount of time is low, and that TB infection usually requires long and repeated exposure. But for people with compromised immune systems, the risk for limited exposure is higher. A shrine of flowers has been building up outside the YMCA in Mission Valley at the feet of a statue of NBA Hall of Famer Bill Walton. The San Diego native died Monday of cancer. Longtime sports writer Jay Paris was also a longtime friend of Walton's and a fellow Grateful Dead fan.
He loved the Grateful Dead, but I think he even loved San Diego more. And for him to come home to play for the Clippers, to play in the sports arena, which still stands today, and have his families and friends there, it had to be one of the greatest feelings in his life.
Along with the San Diego Clippers, Walton played for the Portland Trail Blazers and the Boston Celtics. There's one more community session today where San Diegans can learn about the county's more than $8.4 billion recommended budget. At the virtual meeting, you can find out how the budget process works, ask questions, and give feedback. County staff will talk about funding priorities, including behavioral health, homelessness, housing, and public safety. Today's session will be held over Zoom and starts at 6 p.m. For more information, including the Zoom link, visit the Engage San Diego County website. From KPBS, you're listening to San Diego News Now. Stay with me for more of the local news you need.
KPBS On Demand is supported by Splatero, helping homeowners pay off debt by offering streamlined access to your home's equity with no additional monthly payments or new debt. Splatero provides a lump sum of payment in exchange for a share of your home's future value. Pre-qualification is available at splatero.com.
The fire at the Old Time Mesa Energy Storage Facility is still burning after nearly 2 weeks, showing how hard it is to fully extinguish lithium battery fires. North County reporter Alexander Wynn says residents near Escondido are fighting against a proposed battery storage project there for that reason.
Up and down Country Club Drive in Eden Valley, as evidenced by the signs everywhere, residents here are united. They want to stop Seguro, a lithium battery energy storage project proposed on the site of a former equestrian school.
I don't feel safe, and my kids don't feel safe.
Amanda Black lives next to the proposed site, just feet from the development. The Otay Mesa battery storage fire highlights a major concern for her.
When the batteries catch on fire, that there will be air pollution and we will have to evacuate from our home, that we will be breathing in the toxic fumes from the fires.
Seguro's owner, AES, says fires at battery energy storage systems, or BESS, are rare, and the company takes great care to mitigate them. The company says BESS's overall safety record is strong and improving, citing research from the nonprofit Electric Power Research Institute showing the rate of accidents decreasing. Alexander Nguyen, KPBS News.
California Governor Gavin Newsom is proposing to delay a raise for about 150,000 disability care workers in an effort to cut the state budget deficit. Health reporter Heidi DeMarco tells us some advocates say it could lead to longer wait times for patients in need of care.
Dolores Simmons is an in-home caregiver. She says she does everything for her clients, from cooking to bathing, whatever they need.
We're there for them emotionally, physically. You know, their pain is our pain.
She's upset Governor Gavin Newsom is proposing delaying pay increases for disability care workers until next year. In 2021, the state promised wage increases to address a $1.8 billion gap in rates for care providers. Half has been fulfilled. Workers anticipated another raise of $2 to $4 an hour in July. She says she works about 60 hours a week to make ends meet.
$17.71, and that is definitely not enough money to live in San Diego on this pay.
The California Department of Aging predicts a shortage of between 600,000 and 3.2 million direct care workers in California by 2030. Advocates say rising wages in other service and healthcare industries make it harder to compete for workers. But Simmons plans to keep adding to her 30 years of caregiving.
Because I love doing the work.
Heidi DeMarco, KPBS News.
Mexico's presidential election is this Sunday, and today our newsroom is holding a bilingual virtual discussion with political experts to talk about the historic election. Hosting the event is KPBS border reporter Gustavo Solis, and Gustavo joins me now to talk more about it. Gustavo, welcome to the San Diego News Now podcast.
Hello, Debbie. Thank you.
Well, first, I want to talk about the connection between Mexico's presidential election and San Diego. You had a three-part series on this, so first let's talk about how it could impact the economy in our region.
Like in so many ways, Debbie, right? The economy between San Diego and Tijuana is just so intertwined. You talk about the amount of trade, the billions of dollars in trade that crosses the port of entry every year, to the workforce, right? Between 80 and 100,000 people live in Baja California and cross every day to work in San Diego. And the election, I mean, it could impact how easy or difficult it is to make that crossing, right? We already know that long border wait times contribute to millions and millions of dollars in lost productivity in the region. So, theoretically, if movement improves, that would impact millions and millions of more dollars coming into the region.
And Gustavo, of course, another big cross-border issue is sewage polluting our ocean waters. What kind of impact could this election have on that?
Yeah, I think probably the biggest impact is how much federal funding comes from Mexico City to Tijuana. And also, frankly, just with the U.S. election lining up this year, how much funding comes from Washington, D.C. to San Diego. I mean, we know cross-border sewage is a huge issue, and we know that locally we're limited, right? San Diego's limited, the counties limited, and California are limited in what they can do and how much they can pay for it. It really requires all levels of government to be involved. So this election, having an ally in Mexico City or in Washington, D.C. who recognizes the gravity of the situation could be a real game changer.
And how about record-long border wait times? Of course, we all dread those. That's been an ongoing issue. How will the election affect it?
Yeah, that's something I kind of alluded to before with the economy, right? Long border wait times are costing us millions. And just individually, right? I know in Tijuana, people get up at 4 a.m. to cross the border and make it to work in San Diego at 9 a.m. Imagine that. Put yourself in their situation, just that long commute, what impact it has on your mood, your health, your time, and your quality of life. And now we know, we've covered it here before, where border wait times going from San Diego into Tijuana are now getting a lot longer. So similarly, the solutions are infrastructure, build up the port of entries, find new unique solutions, maybe a cross-border ferry or a trolley terminal. All of those big, ambitious projects require allies on the federal level.
For the first time ever, the two leading candidates for president are women. One man is also in the running. Can you tell us about the candidates?
Yeah, of course. And I think everyone in Mexico is genuinely excited about that historic fact that the two leading candidates are women and that Mexico is very likely to get a first female president before the United States. The two leading candidates are Claudia Sheinbaum and Xochitl Gálvez. And the simplest way to break down the election is Claudia Sheinbaum represents the same party as the current president, Andrés Manuel López Obrador. And her campaign, she's pitching herself as a continuation of what López Obrador is doing. So if you like those policies, vote for Claudia. Xochitl Gálvez is the opposition candidate. And she's really interesting because she represents a coalition of multiple political parties, right? Unlike the U.S., where it's mostly Republicans and Democrats and a few independents, there are several political parties in Mexico. And Xochitl Gálvez represents three of the oldest, most historic ones, PRI, PRD, and PAN. And it's going to be interesting to see how she handles that coalition, because historically the parties have fought each other. Some of them are center-left, some of them are center-right, but they're all united in their desire to get rid of Andrés Manuel López Obrador and combat Sheinbaum. So it's a really interesting race so far.
Can you tell us the main differences between the U.S. and Mexican election process?
Oh, gosh, so many. We already talked about the different party system, right? There's just way more parties in the Mexican system. It leads to coalition governments and even new parties that didn't exist 10 years ago, like Morena Party. It's a relatively new party. It represents the president, the governor of Baja California, and the mayor of Tijuana. So new upstart parties can get a lot of traction very quickly. Another main difference is that the U.S. elects the president in 4-year cycles versus 6-year cycles in Mexico. So it is also kind of historic that this year, 2024, both elections are lining up. And I think the biggest difference is the fact that Mexico has an independent federal electoral agency, right? They have one agency setting up elections, local elections, state elections at every level of government. Whereas here in the U.S., obviously, every state has its own system and every county has its own different system. And it's kind of led to delays in counting votes and kind of confusion. Is different laws regarding voting in different states. In Mexico, they've really made an effort to streamline it throughout the country.
And Gustavo, what about safety concerns for not only the candidates, but also for people that are voting for the election?
Yeah, that's a really interesting question, Debbie, because insecurity has become the biggest political issue in Mexico, right? Is the current president and the current administration doing enough to bring down crime rates? And data shows that they haven't. And then when we talk about election violence in Mexico, as you accurately pointed out in the question, there's two kinds of it, right? Candidates are being killed, and there's a potential worry of voters facing danger. I know last election cycle was the deadliest on record for Mexico in terms of candidates dying before the election, or being murdered, rather. And this year is on pace to equal or even surpass it. I think just a little while ago, there was news about 12 candidates already being murdered in the state of Chiapas. So it's definitely very concerning. Obviously, the outcome of that, or one of the impacts of that, could be lower turnout, right? If people are seeing in the news that there are candidates being killed, they might think twice about venturing out to vote. So hopefully it doesn't impact the voter turnout too much, but there's a genuine concern that it might.
And Gustavo, today our newsroom is hosting a virtual conversation in English and Spanish about the upcoming election with political experts. What can people expect from that conversation?
Oh, so much. They can kind of what we are talking about right now, you and me, but just way more in depth. We got really, really good experts to come on. We're talking about crime, business, different political movements. The conversation also is kind of historic for KPBS because it's going to be bilingual. We're going to be talking in English and Spanish, switching back and forth. And I think it's going to be interesting on both levels, or I guess multiple audiences, right? If you're new to Mexican politics, if you kind of want an introduction and a primer, there'll be plenty of information for you. But also, if you're a seasoned veteran and know more or less the basics, it will also have high-level conversations for you as well.
How can people tune into the conversation?
So they can go directly to our website, kpbs.org/Mexico elections, or they can just watch on YouTube. Both of them today are at 5:30 p.m.
I've been speaking with KPBS investigative border reporter Gustavo Solis. Gustavo, thank you for joining the San Diego News Now podcast. I look forward to tuning into your event today.
Oh, I appreciate it, Debbie. Thank you.
The Southern California Special Olympics Summer Games are next week in Long Beach. Reporter MG Perez tells us the Olympic torch started its journey here in the South Bay.
I think it's time to go ahead and light the torch.
For the past 20 years, the torch has been lit outside the Chula Vista Police Department, sparking the spirit of the Special Olympics Summer Games in Southern California and the beginning of an 1,100-mile torch run by police, sheriff's deputies, CHP officers, and many other members of law enforcement who support athletes with special needs. Thomas Selby is a Special Olympics global messenger with autism who grew up in Santee.
I'm giving others a spark of hope to be able to represent themselves in many ways that they probably wouldn't have ever thought possible.
After leaving San Diego County, the torch goes on through counties as far north as San Luis Obispo, on its way to the opening ceremonies in Long Beach, June 8th. MG Perez, KPBS News.
That's it for the podcast today. As always, you can find more San Diego news online at kpbs.org. Join us again tomorrow for the day's top stories. I'm Debbie Cruz. Thanks for listening and have a great Wednesday.
KPBS On Demand is supported by Splatero, helping homeowners pay for home improvements by offering streamlined access to your home's equity with no additional monthly payments or new debt. Splatero provides a lump sum payment in exchange for a share of your home's future value. Pre-qualification available at splatero.com.